Go.
All right. Okay.
Look at that, he
Um,
remembered.
what's that?
He
I
remembered to.
remembered.
All right. So I was going to talk about some of my cases. I think I left off before what I called the Black Casper case. Is that right? Did I say anything about Black
You
Casper?
just, you
You
just
were
said the
just,
name. You
yep.
said
Just the
the
name.
name and you
Okay.
were going to talk about it.
All right. So what happened was this guy was in custody. He was basically a kind of a middle class guy and was in trouble for something like having a bunch of dope in his car, something out of the ordinary. And he just couldn't abide to be in jail. It was too much for him. So he was moaning uh, to his cellmate about how this was so unfair, and he wished he could get somebody to eliminate the witnesses against him. Uh, Kind of unbelievable, but that's what he said. And so the cellmate asked him a few questions, and the guy seemed like he was serious. So the cellmate, of course, did what any cellmate would do. He went to the cops and told them all about it. And so the cops sent an undercover guy into the jail posing as a hitman, um, to see if they could get this guy to talk some more about it and maybe incriminate him. The guy they sent is named Steve Darden. He's a kind of a controversial cop. He tended to be violent sometimes, but I thought he was a good cop. He got the job done. He was effective, and he's big. He's really big. He's really buffed, um, massive guns, and his name is Darden. He's the first cousin of a guy who was a DA in Los Angeles who got mixed up with the OJ case.
Oh, yeah,
His name was Chris Darden.
yeah.
Yeah, he's Darden's first cousin. So um, Darden's a smart guy, and they sent him in there to talk to this guy who was asking about a hitman, and Darden posed as a hitman. And what was it was he met with the guy in a place where the whole thing could be recorded and audio recorded and video recorded, which should have been a tip off to this crook that something was wrong because they were in a visiting area that never was used for visiting, only for recording. But anyway, Darden poses the hitman from Chicago, asked the guy about the crime. The guy said, "Yeah, I want them all to go down." All of them? Yeah, everyone. The guy that would testify against me and his family if necessary. Wipe them all out. And so Darden said, "Well, that's gonna be expensive. Here's my fee." And the guy said, "Oh, damn. No, I wish I had enough money to kill all of these people, but I guess I'll just have to settle for killing one guy." And Darden says, "Okay, that's what we'll do." They agreed, and Darden said, "Now, once I do the deed, I'm like the Black Casper. I disappear. I'm a ghost. I disappear, and you don't have to worry about anything." So Darden was known as Casper after that. Anyway, uh, the thing about it was how believable this police officer was as a hitman. It was kind of chilling. So I get the case. The guy's lawyer, of course, when it comes out, declares a conflict, obviously, and I get the case. Uh, and I'm trying out everything I could think of, and uh, the obvious thing, of course, is will entrapment work? Maybe the cop entrapped the guy, got him to do something he wouldn't have normally done in order to fix this crime on him. But the idea of entrapment has to do with the cop's behavior, not the perpetrator. And so Darden was just listening. He didn't encourage the guy. He didn't say anything. He did say, I thought he did offer him what I thought was an unbelievably low price for murdering human beings. So I pursued that as a form of entrapment, but that didn't pan out. And I then thought, well, maybe the idea of him saying, I'm the Black Casper, you won't get caught because I won't get caught. That certainly is uh, uh, something that could cause a person to be entrapped. The idea that you won't get caught or it's not illegal, um, like that. None of it panned out. And the but I through wheedling and whining and begging and threatening, I managed to get the DA to agree that to a low 14 years in prison. With, of course, attempted murder is a life crime. But I got the guy off. Actually, he ended up doing a little less. I think it was in the very low double digits. I thought that was a great win, getting this clown off that easily. Which brings up my obvious point that winning for a public defender looks very different than winning for anybody else. Winning is, in this case, something like 12 years. Winning is, uh, sparing the guy from life in prison without parole. We count those things as wins. Um, and I also thought, I think of the guy in the jail calling out for a hitman. It reminded me of the play where it was about Sir Thomas More. What was that play? A Man for All Seasons, where uh, the guy wants someone to rid him of this meddlesome priest. And what
Henry
my
the Second.
that's it. It was Henry the Second. That's right. And
And
will
Thomas
someone
Becket.
and Thomas of Becket, will someone rid me of this meddlesome priest?
And he
Um,
actually deserved to be done in, but beside that,
yeah, right, right. Um, anyway, this is kind of sordid and mean. Not it doesn't rise to the level of Thomas of Becket. Um,
Jim, could you clarify uh, the two sentences? I mean, he was already in jail
yeah,
when he proposed that he'd like somebody to kill the
right.
informants. And then
They
he
weren't
was,
even informants. They were victims of a crime that he was accused of. They were going to be witnesses. The government was going to subpoena them to testify. They weren't even, other members of the underworld. But go ahead, Alan.
so what happened was then they added years to his already sentence. Is that
He,
right?
he
Or
no, he was in for some, minor crime of, it was a minor felony, a felony that could only have resulted at most in 3 years in prison, and probably would have resulted in a lot less than that, that he would have served half of. So it was a nothing crime, but he talked himself into a potential life crime by taking steps, uh, clear and unambiguous steps towards the murder of somebody else. He got, there were a bunch of crimes that spun off from that and got him in a whole bunch more trouble.
so,
Did that answer your question?
I mean, it's hard to take pride in successfully defending such a creep. Isn't that true?
Uh, no.
Okay.
Um,
I want to raise a big question, which I
yeah.
know
Wait,
lawyers.
before we get to that, I want to respond to Alan. It, you know, because this is um, important. When you're doing this, it's weird, but you don't think about things like that. Like, does this person deserve to go free? Is this person going to be a menace to others? Um, why should I be participating in something that helps this absolute creep? You you never think about the client in that way. He's like an object. He's the defendant. Um, and you don't think about moral issues. I know that sounds horrible, But if I started thinking about moral issues or anything other than the facts and the law, I'd get lost. I'd be sunk in quicksand with no way out. So we just don't think of it and like that.
Well, that was my
Um,
question though, because
Pardon?
I was thinking about the case of La Senora this morning
Yeah.
in the shower. Okay. And I'm thinking, I don't get the disconnect between legal justice and ethics and morality.
Well,
As I mean, it's just it seems like you're a good lawyer if you can get a guilty person a lighter sentence or get off, and then they can go hurt somebody again. And I know that's the way it is, and that's what lawyers do. But um, it makes it hard for me to all the wheeling and dealing and everything. It makes me hard to feel happy about that.
But isn't the whole idea is that the defendant deserves a defense?
Well, does it the defendant deserve the manipulation of facts and setting up a misleading scenario? I mean, okay, the philosopher Tony should be concerned about this issue, I think, that if you're going to have justice being, I mean, what does just mean? You know? Anyway, I mean, I know that that's a really, really, Tony, you're muted.
The I think that the system when it was set up is certainly takes all those things seriously, and the idea is that what you're saying about manipulation can also be true of the prosecution. The prosecution, and actually, the prosecution has more wherewithal to, bend the facts than the defense does. What's that? What? Okay, that was McEntee. Oh my
You
God,
see,
he's disappeared.
he
Jeez, he's
froze, he
disappeared.
froze, and then he
That's too bad, 'cause
disappeared.
I wanted to defend him.
Just a second, sorry.
10:20 on Thursday, and we were just talking. Leslie was talking, and the connection dropped, and I can't get it back. It's trying to connect now. Zoom Workplace.
Are you hearing that?
Isn't connected yet, so
Yeah.
if you could
Okay.
tell
Yeah, we can hear you,
everybody
Tony.
that
We
this
can
is
hear
what's
McEntee
happening,
too.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Okay, bye-bye.
Oh shit. Um,
He's in Benicia, you said. I thought they had landlines and cable and all kinds of stuff in Benicia.
we've had a lot of trouble with his. We got online and tried to. He and I. Let me call him back real quick.
Lost the connection and it's trying to.
Yeah, I get it. I heard the message.
All right.
Um, let me call him back. I'm sorry, you guys. Why don't you argue amongst yourself while I'll mute myself and you guys.
Okay, well, I
Yeah.
was just going to say, I think, in response to Leslie's point, I think you have to look at the whole uh, legal system and realize there are certain roles played by certain players in that system. And the defense attorney, I think Jim's right. The defense attorney has to, in a sense, blind himself. He can't be the moral judge of his clients. He has to give them the best possible defense he can. And that's sort of a piece of how that system works. There's other parts of the system that find criminals, indict them, possibly convict them. But he has a job to defend to the best extent he can without playing the judge or the moral. He's not playing the role of the jury or the judge. He's playing a different role.
And it isn't the system will sanction a lawyer who does unethical, at least in theory, will sanction a lawyer who commits unethical acts when they're doing a defense.
Well, I know
Yeah,
I've had
I've got a family. I'm really liking what Barry just said. I have a family member who's had some run-ins with the law, and my impression is that the situation is basically heavily weighted in favor of the prosecution. And so I think the defense needs whatever they can whatever straws they can grab. And also think about the what is it, the Innocence Project that gets people out of prison and off death row because it's found that they were set up
Right.
and they were innocent or they were not guilty of the serious crimes that they've been in prison for maybe many decades for. I'm very sympathetic to the guys who are being charged.
That's the kind of juror I want.
Okay.
There you go.
Otis, why don't you move to Solano County?
Uh,
I
well,
got
it's
reasons
an
for
I'm
not doing
sorry,
that.
I was cut off there. I was listening to Leslie and responding
I'm
to Leslie.
sorry. I thought it
No,
was,
no, not your fault. It was my equipment that failed again.
well,
I
I
don't
don't want
know.
to interrupt you, so you go ahead, but I have some questions at the very, very end. Okay.
What are your questions? I'd rather hear your
Oh,
questions.
okay. So, there's a lot of stuff, and so it might be disruptive, but I was thinking about our legal system pretty much grew out of the British legal system.
Right.
And I have been interested in history for a long time. And so I'm pretty much aware of the huge inequalities that existed early on and how, I mean, is the symbol of justice not only, she's blindfolded, she's got a sword, and she's got these scales, right?
Right.
So things are not supposed to be, they're supposed to be like
Right.
this. So, the the problems with the legal system are partly that if you don't have a good defender, you get a lot of people of color, people who are poor, all of these people who don't get equal justice.
It's true.
But the other thing is that all the manipulation and stuff, you want justice for the society as well as for the individual.
That's
You don't
true.
you don't want people escaping because they were OJ Simpson, they had a lot of money, they had a lot of social status or whatever. Therefore, they're going to get off. And I'm trying to think about, I mean, Laurel will be aware of a lot of the stuff the Quakers do regarding the prison system and stuff like that. But I'm thinking of a very good friend who's in his, I think he's 94 now, who went from being a builder to being the defender for kids in juvenile court,
Oh, good for him.
who ran the drug court. So I'm thinking about, not only you don't want punishment, you want rehabilitation if you can get there. So I'm just thinking about all these different things. And it seems to me like our legal system is like a bird with a broken wing.
Well, that's a pretty good analogy.
well, it's not
Um,
like this is unknown to the government. I mean, the very fact that we have a public defender system, so that if you're indigent or poor, you get somebody like McEntee who will do his best to try to defend you, is a sign of something a little more civilized than I think the court system could be if it was left to who had the money to defend themselves.
Well,
you
right
don't,
now, the court system with the Supreme Court in the pocket of Trump and the criminal in chief getting away with breaking every law in the
that's
I think
right.
that just shows that the system can be bought. So that's all.
People don't approve of public defenders. When you're being identified at the start of a trial, the judge will not refer to you as a public defender, because that tends to bias people against your case. Um, I don't know why that is, but
Well, you're not a good representative of the breed.
what?
Thank goodness for your clients.
I'm just
But,
kidding,
but,
McEntee. I'm saying, never mind.
yeah, the problem. Some guys get kind of beaten down, and they expect to lose because we lose so often. So that's something to be overcome. And I always, this is sad, but I think appearance counts for a lot. The appearance of your client. Um, there was a kind of a closed closet for the public defenders where you could go and get stuff clothes for your client to wear in court. And I tried to go beyond that and get something that didn't look like it came out of a clothes closet. And I tried, with the help of Diane, my wife, to look prosperous, to look really good. I spent a lot of money on clothes, and I thought it would help people. It would help me, and it would help the case. I'm not sure it did, but I felt better.
You know,
Um,
the Johnson administration did a big study on this in during Johnson's, and it was all this stuff. They talked about, it was an extensive study, and they talked about exactly all this stuff. Like, and for example, if you're a ghetto guy and you want to get a character witness, well,
yeah.
hey, there's JoJo and there's Sidekick. I mean,
Mhm.
you can't even find these guys for character witnesses. And all this stuff was noted. The clothing and the fact that a guy comes out of a jail cell, he hasn't maybe had a shower and a haircut in a
Right.
while.
That's right.
All that stuff was noted in that study decades ago.
Right. That's why you go into the jail before any court appearance where jurors will be present with clothes and an assistant and shoes and the things that fit and get the client dressed properly. Um, I was going to say something. Anyway, the appearance. Some people say, to the defender, don't wear fancy clothes, don't wear a fancy wristwatch, don't wear a really nice suit. I thought if you did wear those things, you'd look prosperous, and people might think you're successful, and people would listen to you better. So, unlike some public defenders who didn't look too good, I thought I tried to look my best with a nice suit. Okay, so
Let me just make a
let's
quick
see.
point that we talked last time, Jim, about the percentage of cases that go to trial, to jury trial, versus those that get pled out in plea deals. And it's very high percentage get pled out so that these
Right.
defendants never even get an opportunity to be judged by
Well,
a jury of their peers.
that's
So
an opportunity you don't always want. And the reason it's dealt out is that the deal is right. The prosecution will offer you something that's less, sometimes much less than you'd be facing if you were convicted of this crime. The evidence of the crime is usually solid. You have a pretty good chance of losing, and you're offered something that mitigates the effects of that loss. So that's why I believe it's probably over 90% of cases settle because each side has an incentive, a strong incentive to settle. The defense, like I just mentioned, the prosecution gets out of doing more work and risking a not guilty verdict, which no prosecutor ever wants to hear. So, um, where was I?
Well, you were describing that case,
The Black Casper
Black
case?
Casper, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So so Officer Darden went to the jail posing as a hitman. Um, and the he tells the client what his price would be for murdering all these people, and the client wants to negotiate, and Darden won't negotiate, which is smart because one of the aspects of entrapment, and that's what is on Darden's mind. He wants to avoid anything that would look like entrapment, is giving a person a financial incentive, giving him a discount, a deep discount, a benefit for committing the crime. So he wouldn't bargain. Um, uh, let's see. Darden told the client he would be like the Black Casper. And by the way, again, all this is happening before I got on the case. This is why I got the case. The client was charged with all these crimes having to do with his solicitation of murder. The lawyer that he had rightfully disqualified himself, and he had to have a new lawyer, and that lawyer ended up to be me. Um, so what was interesting to me is how good Darden was at encouraging the guy, or not discouraging him, while also not doing anything to entrap him. Um, Very smart cop and a very skillful negotiator. Uh, Entrapment means that the defendant has to prove that the cop's conduct was something that would cause a normally law-abiding person to commit the crime. So it's a very high burden, and we couldn't meet it. So we bargained the case out, like most of them do, and the guy got off, I think, with 12
So
years.
Jim,
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that the your client kind of fell for this thing because here he is, he talks to his cellmate about his intention, and all of a sudden this guy shows up as an inmate, right? Is that Darden was an inmate?
No, no, Darden was a hitman. He was a free
Yeah, but
person.
how did he make himself what
The
how did he
cellmate told the client, I think I can help you. I think I know somebody that might help you.
Oh, he was not imprisoned at that Darden was not posing
Not
as an inmate.
Darden was not an inmate. He was a hitman. He was a
Oh,
free
got it,
person.
got it, I got it. All
Yeah,
right.
sorry for making that not clear. Um, and they, when he went to visit him, they had to put him in a special area where they could record everything that was being said. So the thing that was remarkable and kind of chilling was how believable this police officer was as a hitman. Um, so um, so this is the Bible kind of what everybody has to start with and finish with, the Alpha and Omega. These are jury instructions. And I opened to a certain jury instruction which has to do with sexually violent predators. When I went into private practice, they were just coming up with this new classification of a crime called sexually violent predators. And it was complicated. It was distasteful. Lots of expert testimony on both sides, lots of preparation, but and people didn't really want to do it, but I did because I could see that these were complicated, involved cases, and they would pay something. So I took on the sexually violent predator defense and became somebody that got a lot of these cases. A sexually violent predator is someone who's been convicted already of committing a sexually violent offense. He has a diagnosed mental disorder. And as a result of that diagnosed mental disorder, he's a danger to the health and safety of others because it's likely that he will engage in sexually violent predatory conduct if he's released. So it's necessary to keep him in custody in a secure facility to ensure the health and safety of others. So I became kind of an expert on sexually violent predator defense. Um, and I actually those were pretty hopeless cases because to start off, the government is allowed to bring up every bad thing the guy ever did in his life to show that he had this qualification as a sexually violent predator and had a disposition that would tend to cause him to commit further sexually violent cases. So normally in a case, you're not allowed to bring up all the guy's past bad acts most of the time. But in this case, that's the first thing the jury's going to hear. This is a person who committed rapes. He committed cases of lewd act with a child. He's already been convicted of this stuff, and now all you have to do is decide whether he should be sentenced, put in a secured mental facility, probably for the rest of his life. Um, so I started defending these cases, and actually got I had success. I won one of them, and which was I thought a feather in my cap, and like that. Um, let's see. So the Black Casper case, I was going to mention not guilty by reason of insanity, which is like, it has to do with the person's mental status. Not guilty by reason of insanity uh, essentially means the person didn't understand what he was doing and didn't understand that it was wrong, a very high bar. Um, and so very difficult to prove not guilty by reason of insanity, which the defense has to prove. But there's another reason not to do that is because if the guy is found not guilty by reason of insanity, he's committed to a state mental institution, a locked mental institution, possibly for life. So unless the client is accused already of a life crime, like murder or some other life crime, it makes little sense to me to try for a not guilty by reason of insanity verdict because he's going to go away potentially for life if he's found not guilty by reason of insanity. So that's that.
Hey, Jim,
Yeah.
back to that, okay, back to your period of time where you were defending a lot of sexually violent criminals. Can
Predator.
you,
Yeah.
predators, okay,
Yeah.
can you talk about in general how those cases went and what your observations are about that particular phase of the law and how it's administered and so on? So, I
Here's
mean,
Yeah, here's in those days, or I guess even now, the person couldn't go. He was committed as a sexually violent predator, and every 2 years they had to do a recommitment hearing. They had to, the government had to present evidence that he was still dangerous. He still had this mental disorder that caused him to be dangerous, and he was going to be dangerous because so you had to confine him in a secure mental health facility. Um, the if so you had these chances to get the guy out because they had to recommit him every 2 years. I think it's changed now. I think that they were unhappy because of all the money they had to spend every 2 years on new trials. So I think the rules are different now. I think once he's committed for life, but that may not be so. But anyway, at a recommitment hearing, um, I got, all the records for the guy, what he did in the mental health, the Department of Mental Health, the secured mental health facility. I got all his records from before that were available, sentencings, uh, police reports from his other cases, just a mass of documents. And the the main thing was that this is this is kind of odd, but while this guy was in custody in the Department of Mental Health, he got married. And he got married to a woman that was respectable. She was the former wife of a police officer, actually. And they had stayed married. So if you're defending a guy who's a so-called sexually violent predator and he's gotten married and the marriage seems to be stable, it seems to me that's a pretty good mark in his favor. And so I tried to exploit that as much as I could. I interviewed her, called her as a witness, after extensive preparation, some would call it rehearsal, but that's unethical. I didn't rehearse witnesses. I just prepared them and put her on the stand. And the main thing she testified to is what he would do if he were released. He was going to go to Washington State. He was going to leave California for good. He had prospects there of employment, housing, and even a relative. And so I thought that would be reassuring to the jury. And we put on the case, and I was able to overcome the things from his past. And his past was pretty bad. He was uh, he was a notorious rapist. He would break into a home, turn on the air conditioning or the heat to make noise, which would draw the attention of the male in the home, whom my client, Mr. McCurdy, would take captive at knife point and tie up, put on the floor, and pile dishes on top of it. So if he moved, the dishes would fall, it would make a noise, it would alert Mr. McCurdy while he was engaged in the uh, rape activities that he'd come to the home for. So I think most people hearing that would be reluctant to release this person again to the street. But it had happened a long time ago. He had been an exemplary inmate at the Department of Mental Health. He had support from a woman, and kind of an upstanding woman who was going to help him and who most of all was going to take him away from the community, far away to another state where he had job prospects and housing. And so we tried the case twice and it hung. The jury's hung. The first time it hung 8-4 for guilty. The second time it was 10-2. And I could sort of see the writing on the wall. This is what's likely to happen. But we tried a new approach. We put on different witnesses. The woman testified, and lo and behold, he was found not to be a sexually violent predator. He got out of court in the afternoon sometime, and he was on the road to Washington and away from California. And I had a little feather in my cap. So,
Do you know, is there any follow up on that? You said last time, probably not.
uh, he he got in trouble again, but it was for kiting checks or something like that.
No.
Um, you know,
So
uh,
Jim, most of your clients in this period were already institutionalized, and they were coming up for a hearing as to whether they had to remain so.
let me hold that for just a second. I wanted to say something, the last word about Mr. McCurdy. Um, I asked him after this was all over, a question about the psychiatry involved and the expert testimony. And I said, you know, Rex, this whole thing about this uncontrollable impulse you supposedly have, this irresistible urge to commit rapes. That's bullshit, isn't it? And he said, no, it's really not. He did have certain urges in that way. So uh, that was a kind of a sobering education. Barry, what were you going to say?
That's kind of where I was going with my question. I wondered how the psychiatric testimony, I mean, you would think,
Yeah,
okay, you're trying to make a judgment whether this guy, if he's released from this mental institution, is going to, resume these behaviors or
yeah,
not. And
yeah.
so it seems to me you don't really know other than what the psychiatrists who are treating him would
Right.
judge him to be. Has he reformed? Has he dealt with some of these issues? I mean, how important was that in all of
Oh,
this?
it's critical, and it's so critical that, of course, I was allowed to retain a psychiatrist as well, or actually as a psychologist. Um, I think I had two psychologists. Um, and they were good. They were very good. The one was quite intellectual and academic, and he insisted that this whole category, in terms of science, was just bogus. It was just a method to punish people that the government chose to punish without scientific basis. And he was pretty good. And the other one was more practical. He was also good. But anyway, of course, I was allowed to put on the psychological evidence just like the government was.
What percentage
No,
of your clients actually were able to be returned to society versus staying incarcerated?
As far as the sexually violent predators,
Yeah.
well, I think probably maybe 15% were kind of rehabilitated and could resume something normal.
Okay.
That might be high, but
um,
some of them
the
were.
can you just clarify that? You asked him whether he had these uncontrollable urges. Did I just clarify whether those were according to him in the past, or they still existed?
They were they were both. They were in the past, but in the present he obviously understood them better, and he'd gotten some tools for controlling them or rechanneling them. The problem is when you're in the Department of Mental Health, everything you do is watched and they listen to everything you say. And if you are saying things that indicate you still have the problem, that's not to your advantage. So they're in an untenable situation. They have to show the government that they're working and being rehabilitated and taking it all seriously, but they also have to protect themselves. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Well,
it strikes me that these cases are a lot like parole situations, that these guys are coming up for, it's very similar. You have to make a decision of whether they have rehabilitated enough so that they're not going to just, return to their prior behaviors. So
That's
it's like
true. Yes, very much like that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
So I had a
Gary.
question. Can I
Yes.
ask another question?
Yes,
So
sure, of course.
guy, this guy sounds a lot like D'Angelo, the Golden State Killer, who,
Yes.
I mean, the dishes on the back. I don't know if that was a
Yep.
copycat technique or whatever.
Yep.
Who had been married for a
Yep.
long time, and they caught him way after the crimes were done
Yep.
because of DNA. And
He
first
was
of
a
all,
former police officer, wasn't he?
I know, and sending somebody off to, was it Oregon or Washington? Oh, I don't like that because those people don't know his background, and then he's got a whole fresh
But
group of
but
people to
but
prey
he
on.
but he was acquitted. He had no more leash. He was free to
So,
go.
so the other thing is,
I wanted to ask you about the dishes on the stomach because I too read about this device in other cases, and it made me wonder, did my guy come first? Did he
who
invent that
invented
technique?
this? Yeah, wow, I don't know. So my other thing is about not a sexual predator, but somebody that I know very well who, as a very young person, just becoming schizophrenic,
Oh,
mm,
very, very delusional.
how old was he?
I think he was 19.
Yep.
And and there were a lot of other things going on, staying up all night long, watching violent video games, smoking pot that may have been,
Yep.
have other things in it. But it was during the Mayan calendar scare, and he believed very much that the world was in danger of ending, and he was feeling very paranoid. So he took a kitchen knife with him when he went for walks. People are looking at him strangely because I think
Oh God.
and he sees a neighbor lady who's hanging Christmas lights and
Oh.
thinks she's signaling the aliens.
Oh.
So he, um, I think he did stab her, not, lethally. I think he cut her hands or something. The husband came out and beat him to a pulp, and he was thrown in solitary confinement for a year with no treatment.
Oh.
Okay, so what I'm aware of is, and he was at Napa State, where they assumed everybody was a drug addict, and the whole treatment for schizophrenics was the 12-step program counseling.
Oh.
But the thing that I became aware of is the interference of private money-making entities in when a person is, first of all, there was some one flew over the cuckoo's nest stuff going on in terms of doctors who said, if you don't do exactly what I say, I'm going to say that you did this and you'll be here for life. I have total control over you. That did go on. But the second thing was that when he was finally allowed through his father's hiring a good lawyer, he was finally allowed to leave that. He went into what was called Conrep,
Yeah.
which is a private entity that makes money by keeping people in their program.
Yeah.
So that even after he had been, and that's a very restrictive program, again, with run by people who can change the rules on you in
Yeah.
terms of getting demerits and being set back. You have these tiers that you try to work toward. So the point is that I became aware of some of the flaws in the whole thing of being a criminal with mental health problems. He's now, just so you'll know, gets a shot at Safeway 4 times a year, and totally nonviolent,
Wow.
totally has the schizophrenia under control, has a girlfriend, is different, has a arrested development. He spent 93, he was, from 19 till about, he's 39 now. So anyway, he's not like you and me, but he's,
Right.
so yeah, and I'm not sure he really, really had schizophrenia. They came to that conclusion early on because his brother did. But, it's complicated. But I'm just thinking about the whole question of mental illness and incarceration is so complicated by the approach we use,
I
where,
know.
inadequate treatment stuff. But I don't want this guy
Yeah, that's right.
being let
Right.
loose. So
Why is it that schizophrenia or other disorders typically, the onset typically occurs at around 18, 19 years old?
because there's a thing that goes on, Laurel will know more about this, but it's sort of like your brain naturally prunes back some neurons and it goes overboard and prunes back too many.
Prunes back neurons?
It's like I'd have to look into it more, but that's sort of the way it was explained to me, and it does make a physiological change.
Yeah,
But apparently, people who can stay on the meds actually can get a lot of help. But so I'm just thinking about, I guess with the whole thing with law, you have, as you say, I love the fact that you said you had training being an actor because you've got a role, as Barry pointed out, you've got a role to play, but I just don't want it to turn out a tragedy for either the individual person or the society because we're not looking at the whole picture.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
our son-in-law is a capital appeals specialist, so he's also in the
Oh,
defense world, and he works with basically people who've been convicted of murder,
right.
and the attempt is to get them off of death row. Sometimes that means a life without possibility of parole, but sometimes it means they're exonerated, I suppose, or convicted of something lesser than. But part of his research is in all the pieces that could have gone wrong along the way in the trial process and whether procedure was correctly followed at
Yeah.
all steps. And I think one of the things that you see as a consequence is ideally that means that it's a reminder to the prosecution and to the police and the prosecution to that their side of the procedure be fair and correct, especially if it's a possibility of an death penalty, but just in general, because like your original client, jail is not a good experience, and putting
Oh,
people in jail for things that you screwed up is a really for in your zeal to convict someone.
yeah.
And so I've been sort of heartened by seeing at least occasionally things where the Trump administration doesn't get away with ridiculous prosecutions. But even people who are, Craig described one client to us who had actually committed two murders, and this woman and her mother, I think, who, as Craig said, sort of happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he said, well, basically, this was a guy he was a good, decent guy, but had one really bad day,
No.
and had since then kind of reformed. And when Craig had to have major surgery when he had a tumor in his spinal cord, he got this very nice note from this guy that said, don't worry about the case. The main thing is your health. All of us here on death row in our prayer circle will be praying for you. And so, I mean, but this was what he wanted to do. This was his dream job, was making sure people don't get executed. Even the people who, when you hear about what they did, you think, I do not want this person running around. And
Well,
even when you're quite sure they did
I
it,
want to
they
I want
just,
to go I want to go back to what Otis said about the Innocence Project, because it was, I think the advent of DNA analysis has really changed the whole game here, especially on death row convicts, of how many of them are proven to have been wrongly convicted because of DNA evidence. And those numbers are shocking when you look at it, which to me, which made me be completely against capital punishment, because there was obviously some of these people had been wrongly convicted for a variety of reasons. A lot of them have been mentioned: financial means, not having proper defense,
Race.
corrupt intentions by law enforcement, all kinds of things. So with DNA, when we have now a foolproof method of exonerating people, and a lot of people have proven to be, you know, unfairly and wrongly convicted, makes me really doubt the whole. You have to. Makes me be opposed to capital punishment, because I mean, too many mistakes.
Yeah.
What I know about the Innocence Project is very much guided by several articles that have appeared in the New Yorker over the years. They have a writer or a couple of writers who do in-depth um, pieces on the quest for justice among people who are not getting it, and there's some horrible stories in there, and these are people who typically have had one bad break after another in the legal system. I remember one story: a guy has had a defense attorney a public defender who fell asleep. He slept through the trial, and that didn't was not a an excuse to disqualify the public defender, and so on.
Well, on appeal, it's too bad it would take that to maybe rectify it, maybe.
I don't know
Um,
why it didn't get overturned on appeal. I mean,
yeah,
but he
I don't know how a judge could allow anybody in his court to be sleeping, um, or a bailiff. If if people are before the bar of justice, and they're like a witness or a lawyer, and they're sleeping, the bailiff's going to go over and kick the chair they're sleeping in and wake them up. And the court will take a recess and interrogate that person, and maybe declare a new, suspend the proceedings, or even invalidate the trial, start over.
Hey,
So,
Jim, Uh,
I would think, at least in California, where I've been, that's what.
Jim, I wanted to return to, you talk about schizophrenia. You
Yeah.
remember Alice Feller talking about the incentive for
Yes.
uh, the system that cares for these people to mark them as schizophrenia when that is not necessarily the correct diagnosis. Do you have any experience in that regard?
Not in the regard of a corrupt diagnostician or an incompetent one, but um, uh, I just I think maybe that's a go-to diagnosis, an easy fallback and default position, um, and maybe that's how it happens. But I never saw anything even even close to that. Uh, because the diagnostician had to be vetted, he had to be interrogated, he had to justify his work. You had witnesses from outside that could talk about what the guy was like, and you had your own expert to look at their work and criticize it and talk about the flaws in court, as well as diagnosing the person himself. So I don't know. I never tried any cases outside of Napa and Solano. Um, those probably aren't representative, or aren't districts that are representative of the whole state. In fact, I know they're not, but I never saw anything like that.
Well, when
Well,
Alice talked about upcoding is what it's called, where they that was done, I think, was a systemic thing because of the way the insurance system was set
right.
up.
Oh
That in
yeah,
order to get
It's a
people,
different institutional structure there. One is the legal system, the other is the support system or the
Mental
care
health.
system.
yeah.
So,
yeah.
Jim,
Insurance, I mean.
I have a question for you. I don't know if you followed the trial of Carlos Dominguez at all in Yolo County next door.
No.
So he was the student at UC Davis who basically was kicked out partway through his freshman year for acting very, very weird and not going, I mean, basically falling apart, and proceeded 2 days later to stab to death the compassion guy, David Bro,
I do
who was
remember
a
this.
friend of mine. I knew David quite well from many years in the shelter world. And then 2 days after that, another student who was, about to graduate, and then attempted to kill a homeless woman, stabbing her through the wall of her tent, and she survived. But he was I guess the first efforts at trial came to a mistrial. He was hospitalized for a couple of years and was just retried and essentially found guilty of partially guilty and then sentenced. One of the efforts at the prosecution was to say that it wasn't schizophrenia that was the problem. It was that he was a heavy user of marijuana, and that triggered the schizophrenia or made it worse. And so he was at fault for
Yeah,
using marijuana. I don't know if
yeah.
you followed that at all. Dan
I
was called
remember
for
a little
jury
bit.
duty. Dan was called for jury duty on it, and thank God he was excused. It would have been very hard, and I think he would have had to use me as an excuse not to. But
Oh, I always looked forward to jury service. I regret I was never able to get on a jury,
well,
although, yeah.
what about someone who was he knew David, but I was a friend of David, so I don't
Oh,
think
yeah, no,
having a
you're
friend
not
of
going
the
to be on the
victim.
jury.
I think that
Yeah.
it wouldn't have
Yeah.
been particularly good. I know
So he
his
was,
sister also, and she said she was glad we weren't.
yeah,
She said she sat through all the trials and felt it was very hard.
yeah. So this person became psychotic from using marijuana.
Well, that was a contention of the prosecution, but he had been showing symptoms before.
Yeah,
The defense claimed that the marijuana was he was starting to use that heavily after his psychotic break. I see Leslie is.
Yeah,
Leslie.
yeah. So I have read about marijuana use during the teenage years can be very dangerous
Yep.
because if you have the latent genetic makeup for getting schizophrenia, um, it can tip the scales and make it happen.
Yep. That's right.
Hey, Jim, how are we doing on what you wanted to cover today? We're
Oh,
getting
this is what I wanted. This is great. I much prefer this method.
I
okay.
wanted to
I'm
try
just
some, yeah.
wondering whether uh, whether we're ready to move on for the next meeting. That's all I'm asking. Have you missed something you wanted to cover? Is what I'm asking you.
Well, yeah, I have more I could talk about, but I don't know how important it is. Uh, in fact, I don't know if anything is really. I was going to talk about jury instructions. I was going to talk about um, a funny misdemeanor case, my first case. I may have talked about it already. Um,
Why don't we do this? Uh, we kind of wanted to move on the flock thing. I mean, that was
yeah,
Laurel's recommendation. Why don't we hold that in abeyance and just keep that in our back pocket? I think you could probably do another hour. And we also have Barry's got something to do. So let's, just scheduling wise, let's try to do flock on Tuesday. And then you can kind of, gather your thoughts on maybe another hour that you could do. So I enjoyed the whole thing. So I'd love to see you again. So
thank you, John.
Otis, are you trying to get? I'm just trying to
I
work
just
out
want
the
to say something.
schedule.
I've got a 1 minute comment, and I'll be quiet after that. We got into the subject of jury duty, and I think that was the other thing that has kind of shaped my view of the legal system. I was on a jury one time in the 70s when that was when I still lived in LA, and the story was that a guy who was a perpetual drug offender had gotten caught in a public restroom. I think he was either shooting up or soliciting drugs, and he got caught. And it didn't really seem he was any doubt that he was guilty, but the prosecutor absolutely failed to produce evidence that would convince us. I mean, we were able to infer he was probably guilty, but it wasn't proved beyond the reasonable doubt that he was guilty. The evidence was not presented. And so the way that jury discussion went on, it was like we were probably it was more than a day. We came back the next day, and the majority were yeah, hang him high. But a couple of us just held out and said, no, they didn't present their case. And eventually the others said, yeah, you're right. They didn't. We gotta let them go. We don't want to. We got to do it. And the public defender, Jim, maybe you know of this person. She was a public defender in LA. So we're talking about sometime in the mid 70s. And she was also a ballerina.
Mm.
She was kind of an overachiever. You know what I'm talking about?
No, but I'd love
Okay.
to meet her.
Very
Is
impressive person. I think she was
where in
to me.
Los Angeles County were you?
And this was at the county
Oh,
courthouse downtown.
wow, on Temple Street.
Right.
Wow. Well, that's really something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd love to meet this woman and I'd love to see some cases, watch
Yeah.
cases
She's
in
probably
LA.
she's probably 5 years older than us, so she may or may not still
Oh
be around.
yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, jurors in Solano, you had a lot of African American jurors. In Napa, there were many Mexican American jurors. And I thought that you got a pretty good jury in each of those counties. So, you
Well,
want to
that's
adjourn?
another topic we could discuss a lot. So maybe note that down, Jim, and for future, like I say, in our back pocket for another session. Um,
Will do. I wanted to ask, somebody mentioned a Mayan calendar. Les,
Yep.
what's the Mayan calendar?
Oh, what year was that? Does anybody remember? I think
Uh, Within the last
well,
couple of years.
somebody who misunderstood the cycles of the Mayan calendar said something that it somehow predicted that You reach this year and that's it. There is no more.
Yeah, I
There was
remember that.
a lot of hype about that.
So it
And
turned out not to be true.
well, I don't know.
No,
I'm
it's just
here.
changing
Where are
cycles.
you? It was like Y2K.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Remember
Y2K.
Y2K?
Yeah.
My neighbor across the street, who's unusual and pretty paranoid, filled his entire living room, floor to ceiling, with 5 pound, no, 50-pound things of rice and beans because he believed, he listened to talk radio all the time. He really believed that that's how he was going to survive and other people weren't. So,
Yeah.
well,
Tony, I have a question. You're using a word to describe what we're going to do next time, and I don't understand it. It's jack or something like that.
Flock.
Flock.
Flock?
Flock.
What's it? What
FLO.
what is
It's a
what does that
company.
mean?
Those an acronym for a company that gets the data from these cameras and combines it with knowledge of from phones and everything else. So let me see if I can quickly find out.
So we'd
Automated
be talking
license,
about the
automated
prospects of a
license plate
surveillance
reader.
state.
Yeah, surveillance state. That's what it
Right.
is.
I
That's what
just
it
wanted to
is.
say I'm going to take Tony's advice, and I'm never going to buy a green laser pointer. I just want to make that
There's a.
clear.
I don't know if everybody heard that. Did you ever everybody hear this?
I was thinking about it,
I'd
but
never heard him say anything.
I take a
My
picture of
cat
it.
preferred red ones.
No, but
No, it was a
do not buy
Lincoln,
green ones.
that Lincoln group that's definitely leftist said, whatever you do, don't aim a green laser pointer at a flock camera. And they're cheaply available at eBay, and you really want to not do that because it completely destroys the camera. So don't, whatever you do,
So it just says
aim a
flock.
green laser pointer at a flock camera.
So flock isn't an acronym. I bet you it's somebody's last name who started the company. It's named Flock Safety is the name of the company. And what they do is they it's an automated surveillance system that they make that captures vehicle license plates and specific car details to build searchable movement databases. There you go. That's official. I have I was so interested in this because, as I said, I had seen this thing that looked vaguely like a camera. I live on this bucolic little narrow street that goes along Big Chico Creek. I mean, it looks like half jungle. And we have a neighborhood watch sign next to a fire road that comes in. And I looked up one time, I thought, what's that? And I could see that, something was there was a solar power thing attached to this little thing that looked like a camera, but I didn't think that much about it. And then all the shit hit the fan about the flock cameras. And so I went down there and I scratched myself all up because it was overgrown with blackberry bushes and stuff. But I looked and somebody had cut off the camera, but they'd left the solar power thing. So it wasn't my imagination, I think. Um, but I started thinking about the cameras and both sides. Oh, we had a what did they call that? The police and firemen went out a few weeks ago to various neighboring community things in homes and stuff and had an opportunity to talk to them about questions. So I asked one of the policemen about the flock cameras because our chief of police um, had said, "Oh, we didn't know they were selling the information to ICE. We didn't know we were doing anything illegal." And I felt personally betrayed because I had attended the Citizens Police Academy for months, going every Thursday night to find out all about the different working aspects. And I thought this guy was a pretty good guy and pretty trustworthy. So it's a thing that intrigues me. I wanted to know though, I did save a few articles. Do you want me, they're in sendable form because I stuck them on my notes. Would the people who are currently here like me to send you those articles so that you can review
Sure.
them? Or we
Yes,
can-
that would be
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also,
Well,
did you get
I
the
just,
did
I
you
just
get
have
the
to say,
email from Move On about Flock? That just came in today.
Yeah, if you want to, a lot of it seems to be repeated information. I have this stuff from ACLU and other things that have come in. So why don't we send each other? Do we sort of know who's here? Why don't we send each other any information we have? Because it's not, I don't want to be any kind of sage on this stage. I'm just sort of, I'm not only disturbed about the situation, but I do see that there are some other points of view, and I want to have everybody participate in bringing whatever information they can get.
I'd
Okay.
like to get that, but I wanted to say the interests of ICE and the interests of the local police don't always coincide. In fact, in some respect, they're probably opposed to each other.
Well, I'm sure that they are, and I have a feeling that I'm sort of curious how it fell through the cracks if in fact the police chief didn't know, but maybe I can find out more information about that. So let's, and if you know people, Tony, can you send the information out to the whole, as you usually do, to the whole listserv?
Yeah,
And
yeah, you can just send it to me and I'll forward it to everybody.
I don't have anything specific.
Oh,
You want me to send them the articles? You want me to send
y-
the articles?
yeah, sure. I don't have anything, so I can't say anything out.
So I could send the stuff and it would at least give us a jumping off point.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, sounds
Uh,
good.
Yeah,
I
and
just want to say, before you go crazy with your green lasers, what do you think the flock camera records right before it goes under?
I said it's going to take a picture of me with my laser going like
Well,
this.
yeah, you gotta have a bag over your head. Philby, you ought to know this. Jeez, do I have to instruct you on everything? Uh,
or a
or
frog suit. Have a frog
balaclava
suit.
or something. Uh, okay, everybody, this was jolly, and nothing better than hearing about violence, sexual predators, and all that kind of thing.
And I want to,
Made my day, and so we're going to continue next time. Uh, Leslie, I know you don't want to take point, but to the degree you can, maybe you can take lead on it next time.
I will.
And then McEntee, keep in mind that we might have some follow up on that stuff. And then Barry, you're on for Thursday. Are you? Do you have that conflict?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Is
I can
that
do it.
I
all?
want
Everything okay with everyone?
Yes.
yeah,
yes.
yeah, and Tony, it's not when you send this out, it's not just Flock, it's other automated license
Motorola, just say surveillance camera.
Yeah, I'll do it.
like Flock. You can say like Flock because many people have heard of that conflict, but that our city council tried to say, oh no, it's not Flock, it's different, it's Motorola.
So that makes it.
Great.
I didn't find that a persuasive.
No.
Oh, Tony, I wanted to tell you I sent email to Pete Stevens because he had said he was going to be busy, but he might have time in September. And he said he had just finished building a theater set and he was exhausted, but he needed a few days to recover and stuff, but he sounded like he was still interested and willing to do his presentation on the explosion.
So we're going to grant him a few days of rest. I'm not so sure I'm okay with that.
I told him, he could, I'll keep after him from time to time, but that
Okay.
he could recover and think about what he wanted to say, and that it was
Yeah.
well that you don't have to be.
I think that'll be great. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, everybody, a good one, and we will see you on Tuesday. And
Okey
send
doke.
me that
On
stuff,
Tuesday.
Leslie.
See you on
Thanks.
Tuesday.
Anybody else that has anything on Flock or that stuff, I'll forward that too, so you can send it to me.
Okay, so I'm not going to send it to you guys. Whoop.
Tony's
And
going to
I'm
send it
not
to
going to
us.
send it to you guys individually. I'm going to send it to Tony. So look for his missive.
Yep.
Got it?
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
bye.